The only thing that would have made that goal celebration better, Rog, is that when he pulled off the shirt, if one of the Brazilian legends on his back had been Alisson flailing and failing to stop the header into the ground that Richarlison had just scored.
I can imagine how Richie can get tattoos that quickly.
Or maybe doing the chicken dance with Sonny on his back would have been amazing.
That would be on his lower thigh.
From the Men in Blazers studios in the crap part of Bedford and from the crap part of a rainy West Hollywood, it's the Men in Blazers video podcast presented by the GFOPs at Camarena, the Most Awarded Tequila.
We back like the Seattle Kraken. How you doing, David?
Yeah, wow, some upsets in the NHL this weekend. Before we even get to the football, Rog, how was your weekend? How are you doing?
Yeah, I want to give a big hug to all Spurs supporting Boston Bruins fans. However bad we all feel, and I've got to be candid, I feel pretty terrible.
Big day for you
being
today.
Honest. It's a day in which no hope would shine, as we will discuss. But such a weird weekend for me, Davo. No Everton game, which actually made it, on one hand, rationally, a immensely relaxing weekend, which tells you all you need to know, really. But I found myself spending Saturday and Sunday just flicking in between games, hoping for negative outcomes, which is, Southampton, Leeds. By the way, shout out to poor Napoli fans experiencing that late goal, which deprived them of a beautiful title win before their home fans. GFOP at Markness Visible called the late equaliser that they leaked. He called it Goal Mora, which I love. Apart from Napoli, I spent the whole time watching football, wishing death on all my enemies. David, when Theo Walcott scored an own goal for Southampton, little Theo, he never hurt anybody. And I found myself shouting at the television, own goal, Theo Walcott. I found myself up on my feet in front of my own children shouting, Theo is him! And I realised it's a horrible way to live life. That person that I've turned into, it's awful.
It's spite watching, Rog. To be fair, though, I don't think this is entirely new. I think this is what football fans do constantly.
I mean, on one hand, yes, this was the best weekend for Everton in a very long time. All the fellow bottom feeders lost. But I realised this season, to be a fan of so many of the teams, because they're all stuck in reverse gear. Let's be candid. Leeds, Southampton, please God, Leicester, Everton, even West Ham. Now
Chelsea,
Nottingham Forest. Thank God the season's almost over. Because that was amazing. Yeah. That's an amazing bit of football bants all over the internet. That Chelsea scored one goal in the whole of April. It was Conor Gallagher's deflected goal against Crystal Palace, and everyone be like, "That's the Chelsea goal of April, goal of the month." It's really
the only goal. Yeah, but the other piece of bats going across is for the second season in a row, Frank Lampard has staved off relegation with the team he's managing. It's amazing.
He didn't dance on the director's box this time, did he?
Not yet.
There was not a pitch invasion yet. When does that happen? When do they do that? And if, when do they sing that again, Frankie? But anyway, I want to be completely clear. I have 100% surety that Everton are poised to crap the bed this season. I want to be clear. But Davo, to root for others to experience calamity, which is how I've spent the past 48 hours, it's sad and it's pathetic. I just want to own that. It's
and the problem is there is also karma. So when you do it, it means that
Tell me about this thing that begins with
everyone
K,
else
which I don't know.
Now is going to be who's at the bottom. What are they? They're going to want a point today between. I mean, we'll get to all of this.
Bite your arm off for a point.
I know, so you'd love a point, but it will also make everybody else happy.
Oh my God.
Odd. I mean, the strange rooting interests that exists in football.
Why don't we negotiate, Premier League scriptwriters? If a point against Leicester will make me, honestly, I will be like Katrina in the waves walking on sunshine. I will be running around my house in my underpants covered in beer with that point, and it would make every other team happy. Let's just agree to a point for everyone now.
It wouldn't make Leicester happy, though, Rog.
Oh, this is to pull this together, was that beautiful quote Friday night from Giannis, incredible human being, Friday night when the Miami Heat shocked his Bucks, knocked them out of the playoffs. And Giannis, huge Arsenal fan, as we know, he leant into a microphone and he said, "There's no failure in sports. There's good days, bad days, Some days you're able to be successful. Some days you're not. Some days it's your turn. It's always our turn, Yanis. Some days it's not. That's what sports is about. And you don't always win. There's a stunning life truth in there. Be like Yanis, dear podcast GFOPs, not like Rog in life. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate how difficult it was for Giannis to face the press after that. But there is failure in sport. And that's what makes it amazing. The thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. It's the two sides of it. This is what the agony of defeat informs the thrill of victory, and it makes it all worthwhile.
All I know is the agony of the feet. That's all I know.
You know the thrill of victory.
It's 100%.
You grew
it's just
up with the thrill
of the feet.
I've never seen anyone enjoy victory more. You love it. You love it.
I grew up with hair. I grew up with hair too, and that
was exactly victory. That was victory.
I know I've learned to live without both, Dave. Oh, let's dive in.
Before we get to the football, though, a dispatch from the trenches of Men in Blazers, the Men in Blazers rifles, about what things are like on the front tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. It's a special Do It Live after Arsenal versus Chelsea. You'll be on AMP right when the final whistle blows. I'm just praying for our goal of the month for May. GFOPs, come ask your questions and get involved. And Wednesday, it's a very special pod special with none other than Jason Sudeikis and your great mate Brendan Hunt of Ted Lasso fame.
Yeah, David, we taped this pod last week, Thursday, and I absolutely cannot wait for everyone to hear it. I finally got to the bottom of one of the great Ted Lasso mysteries. Which footballer is Zava based on? And the answer is, of course, it's Lallas.
Kick it hard.
This pod... this pod is just filled with humanity and humour, I think in equal measure. I needed it. I've got to tell you, I was absolutely flying after the hour that we spent together. It's probably the best pod we'll drop this year, interview-wise. Do not miss it.
Haven't got into the new season yet. I'm saving that up, Rog. But I'm not sure. Did we ever delve into Zava's politics in the on Ted Lasso?
I imagine he's open of heart and closed of mind. If he's 100% based on Lallas.
Loves America. That hits our pod feed Wednesday morning, Rog, and a quick shout out for the 2 episodes of the Men in Blazers TV show that went live last week and available right now on Peacock. The first with Pep Guardiola, Marcus Rashford, and Bukayo Saka. If that trio doesn't make you happy, what will? And then our Storytellers edition with Peter Drury and Jeremiah Freites of the Lumineers. That's Jeremiah Freites of the Lumineers. Peter Drury, not in the Lumineers, would probably like to be.
Oh, man. Jeremiah Freites wishes Drury was in. Can you imagine what lyrics Drury would write for the bloody Lumineers? Honestly, someone out there set Drury's lyrics to banjo now. I think you've got a smash.
Well, he riffed an entire monologue this weekend during Tottenham Liverpool, talking. I think it's something about this being a deck chair of a fixture, and he went through all these summer and the English seaside analogies. It was just brilliant. We sort of delved inside his head for a little moment.
He is genuinely almost human perfection. You know, you wonder how Shakespeare could write so many plays, and there's a lot of people trying to say Shakespeare was many people. Yeah. Well, Peter Drury makes you realize it is possible to just essentially spit out literature. It's really incredible. But I do want to see Drury on tour with the Lumineers in a waistcoat, no shirt underneath, banjo, resplendent, and one of those gallon hats. Let's make it happen, David.
If you told me that Drury was actually Shakespeare and wrote all of those plays, I would believe it.
By the way,
they might actually be better.
What's not to? Yes, you an improved Hamlet. You an improved. Oh my God! What's not to love?
Okay, Rog. Time for it. Let's have a toast out of you.
I want to raise this third first Bud Light of the day to Ipswich Town, the mighty Tractor Boys, on Saturday, promoted from League One to the Championship, courtesy of a 6-0 win over Exeter. Ipswich currently the hottest team in football, unbeaten in 18, a club steeped in some of Britain's most beautiful agricultural landscape and a rich, proud history. They were a micropower in the late 70s and early 80s when they were perennial title challengers in the early Premier League days. They are back under American ownership, the guys who also own Phoenix Rising, and it's magical to watch them give that fan base reason to believe once again after half a decade of agony. And amongst their most loyal supporters, producer J-Dubs, who has followed the Blues since his dad was a colonel stationed on an American air base in the 1990s. Ipswich are then in the inaugural season of the Premier League, and J-Dubs has stuck with them ever since, even as their trajectory has tailspun. And every time he mentions them to anyone, he always just gets told, "Oh, Ipswich, they used to be good, you know." And now he and every American Ipswich fan can give up on that lifestyle of a patchwork of illegal streams and YouTube to try and find their team and revel in their weekly journey on ESPN+. They'll have 2 games against regional rivals, Norwich City, and probs 2 games against Everton Football Club. Ipswich against Everton, almost certainly going to be the new El Blaze Erico. Bring it on to Ipswich, where the party this weekend was at Napoli levels. May the joy never stop.
See, look how happy Ipswich are to be in the Championship, Rog. It just depends on the way you view it.
Oh my God, if you were with me in this moment,
right now,
you'd be slapping on me on the forehead as you patronise me.
No, it wasn't really about you. I'm just saying that many teams are so afraid of going into the Championship, and many fans, and yet other fans, it's just interesting the way you look at it. Suddenly you're so excited to be in the Championship, and yet we build this whole narrative around fear.
You know,
I wouldn't mind being in the Championship. We might actually score some goals.
Well, I've got to say, Todd Burley listens to this podcast to educate himself about the Premier League, which I think probably is the simplest explanation to explain why he's doing all the insane stuff that he's doing. But Todd, listen to this, mate. Get your club into the Championship. Parachute payments is how you can actually double revenues.
I think he's been working on this all season, Roger. I think he's doing a very good job.
I want some of that sweet parachute payment money.
Okay, Rog, to the football, there wasn't a lot of it, but it was extraordinary this weekend. Even during this you have to see it to believe it season, this one seemed just insane. Liverpool 4, Tottenham 3. The Reds steam out to a 3-0 lead in the first 15 minutes behind goals from Curtis Jones, Luis Diaz in his first start since returning from that knee injury, and Mo Salah. But they then allowed Tottenham to get off the mat and score 3 of their own, including a 93rd minute Richarlison equaliser, unveiling the back tattoo of all time. Just 99, it was a novel, Rog.
I'm pretty sure that back tattoo had himself resplendent already somehow on his back after scoring the equaliser for Tottenham against Liverpool. Somehow that whole scene was already inked on. It was like watching himself in a mirror of mirrors. It was truly incredible, but proceed.
I was trying to name all the other players. At one point, I thought I saw Wayne Rooney on it. But just 99 seconds later,
all tattoos look like Tony Hibbert. No matter how good the tattoo artist is, everybody just looks like Hibbert.
99 seconds later, down the other end, Diego Jota hammered home a winner after a wonderful Lucas Moura assist that sent the Anfield faithful into raptures and saw Jurgen Klopp do his pants in excitement right in front of the 4th official. Liverpool win their 4th straight and leapfrog Spurs into 5th.
Oh my God. By the way, that back tattoo, I actually know this because I talked to Heung-min Son about it. I believe he's got the pantheon of Brazilian greats on his back, who are Ronaldo, Pele, and then himself, because he says, I inspire myself, which is very...
Instead of martyr, which is an interesting choice.
I think he's read Brendan Rodgers' autobiography about inspiring yourself, but Godspeed and God bless. What an incredible, are you not entertained moment? And we know how that ended up for Russell Crowe, as it did for Tottenham. Ahead of this one, we were all like, which Tottenham's going to show up? As they just battled back against Man United midweek, unveiling to the world that there is such a thing as the new interim manager bounce. Who knew under Ryan Mason? And we were like, God, who will turn up this time? Will it be terrible Spurs? Will it be great Spurs? Ultimately, and we didn't know at the time, it would be both. All of them. All of them. Just the whole season, Spurs' whole season would play out in...
It was the Pangea of Spurs turned up. I loved it.
They took the field at Anfield, a place where they'd won just once in 28 games. And from the off, I think it took just 167 seconds. His team who'd leaked 5 quickly against Newcastle, leaked 2 quickly against Manchester United. 167 seconds they held out before a haymaker of a whip first-time cross to the back post from suddenly we all agree is immense again. Trent Alexander-Arnold in rush Curtis Jones, back post, 6 assists for Trent since he became hybrid midfield Trent. And as Peter Drury roared, Anfield, the sound of Anfield, beginning to believe again. It all felt like Make-A-Wish stuff. Everyone on Liverpool is now growing Mo Salah curls and everyone is benefiting from it. Jones scoring for the first time since September 2021. And then within 3 seconds, I think, give or take, it would get worse for Spurs. 6 minutes, Luis Diaz scored on his first start since October, back from a long injury. Incredible goal, leaping to extend behind him, volley, lash past Forster. Not just poor defending in the most basic way by Spurs. David, mentally, at the beginning of games, we've seen 3 times this week, Spurs aren't even present. They're just mentally, they're not there at all.
Yeah, they couldn't hang with Liverpool at all. As you said, number 66, TAA, playing in that central midfield role and then rushing back to go and play right back when he doesn't have the ball. But it was he was just bossing the entire game from the middle of the park and just move after move after move and cutting Spurs open, who, were just, the one thing they just forgot to do in those first 15 minutes, Rog, was run.
Yeah. Running
didn't seem to come very naturally.
It's an easy mistake to make for elite athletes. I mean, if they're not told to, by Ryan Mason. Ryan Mason, a new coach, he didn't give them the run order. So, they were like, do we run? Do we lull up? Do we stroll? Do we just wave? Do we just wave Liverpool through like errant security guards? But Gary Neville on the English broadcast just joked, Spurs players, they might as well set up direct debit with their supporters and write another round of refund checks. At the real Alig 007, a GFOP tweeted us, has an interim manager ever been sacked? I mean, that's what it felt like, right? I mean, Spurs fans started to chant immediately, how, and I paraphrase, crap must you be? It's only 2-0 about their own team. And so their side gave away a penalty, obviously within seconds. Romero for no reason, going through Gakpo. And how crap must you be? Even Mo Salah scores a penalty against you. 7 consecutive home games with a goal for Super Mo. Davo, Spurs fans started to leave the stadium on the 14-minute mark. 3-0 down, travelled all that way up north. By the way, that's after travelling all that way up to Newcastle to see their boys wilt 5-0 within 30 minutes. Last week, this is a team who have travelled miles to see their team concede a league-high 13 goals in the opening 15 minutes of Premier League games. It's like sleepwalking is a motif of their campaign. It was
pretty stunning, the first 15 minutes of that game, and watching the Tottenham fans leave was something else. I thought Romero, that just his plead for innocence. When any footballer makes the motion, draws the picture of the ball, that they got the ball. The one thing is that they got nowhere near the ball.
I think you said I got his head. I got his head.
I was on the planet. It was just awful. And just, cut to brilliant camera direction by the team, just cutting constantly to Daniel Levy in the crowd, just looking more and more pursed-lipped, shriveled, brain exploding inside.
It's like watching Homer Simpson just retreat into the bushes. But you remember how we used to joke that Arsenal were just a clothing brand with a football team attached?
Yeah.
Spurs are in danger of becoming a comedy club. They're kind of like the Improv kind of comedy club. They're like Funny or Die, and Spurs actually do both. But then the game totally changed. Liverpool started to first toy with Spurs, dummies, audacious shots, nutmegs, no respect. Tottenham let Liverpool just take the possession, drive right back at them, stiff the ball down their throats. But how much was it that Spurs players were stung? Were they angry? Were they embarrassed? I think a lot of it has to do with the mentality of Harry Kane. Once again, for like the 32nd time, I've lost count this podcast season. We ask ourselves again, what's going on inside Harry Kane's mind? We all know he's got a choice to make at the end of the season. His team are onto their third manager, probably going to end up in the Europa Conference League. Does he want the statue that will be smelted of him? One that kind of looks like him? Kind of looks like Tony Hibbert outside of the Spurs stadium if he retires a one-club man, or compete for, even win things by leaving, because, John Higgins of Hudson, Ohio, as we discussed on Friday's pod, Davo, Spurs just are what Cousin Greg in Succession would call the bottom of the top. And they can't get out of that. Caught in the trap.
Yeah, but while you've still got Harry Kane on your team, while you've still got Heung-min Son, you do stand a chance. And it's funny, that was exactly what I was thinking as I was watching it, is that they are going to find a way to influence the game. And it did turn. And Liverpool, for some reason, stopped playing the same football they were playing. It just is teams, and teams do this. Believe me, I do it on a tennis court. You stop everything that's got you to that place of winning. Suddenly, Trent was no longer playing in central midfield. Trent was only playing in right back. I think he was probably sick of the run back. And the game changed completely.
Harry Kane said before the game, I feel we've lost a bit of what the values are at this club over the last few years. We have to find a way to get back on the same page with our fans. We want to improve. This goes from the top right through the club. And that's what I believe we saw in that last 60 minutes from Spurs, because out of nowhere, they started to assert themselves. There was a late first half Liverpool wobble. Kane's goal, 25th of the season, one that draws him level with Wayne Rooney, 208 Premier League goals. Shearer's record of 260 lies ahead of him. And Spurs went right down the Trent Alexander hole that he'd left by taking over midfield. Perisic just sweeping in a beauty of a cross for Kane to quite brilliantly finish. Kulu had a one-on-one within seconds. Alisson kick save. Suddenly oh my God, where's this? It's like watching someone pull themselves off the canvas and just get back into a fight. Anfield at halftime felt both triumphal and vulnerable at the same time, not quite sure what happened at the end of the first half to let Tottenham turn the game around. It was as if they were in the locker room. Follow me here. Ryan Mason had just seriously looked at the lads and said, lads, if you try and play football in the second half, just try. I'll bring the condiments that Conte banned from the training ground back if you pretend to give a crap.
That's the culture of the club that got lost. It was all wrapped up in the condiments.
Yeah. Tottenham players, they hustle for ketchup.
Yeah. He may have also told them to run in this half of football. But yeah, it was
lads, did I neglect to say run in my tactical briefing before the game? Run like effers, you little bastards. And that's what they did. Other side of half-time, Son hit the right post. Romero, seconds later, hit the left post. And OCD completionists must have been elated as Spurs hit the bar, also to bat the cycle for posts and crossbars. How does it work, Davo? By the way, do they let the Spurs fans, do you think, the ones who left in protest, making their TikToks like, I can't stand this, man, hate this club? Do they let those self-exiling Spurs back into their seats, David, with 40 minutes to go? Sonny, arcing run off Robertson, finishing lethally. Game suddenly felt like a cheap Spurs remake of Southampton Arsenal. But do you think they let the Spurs fans come back in? Do you think they all halfway back to London and they just do handbrake U-turns?
Yeah, maybe. I imagine they were all either on the train or down the pub at that point, watching on their phones. I mean, it's not, live football when you're getting beaten 3-0 at Anfield is just not that fun to watch. So
been there, done that, mate.
So we will
see.
But it wasn't just Tottenham who got back into the game. We also have to say that that Liverpool. I mean, believe me, I'm saying this as a Chelsea fan. We don't even score goals, so we don't have 3-0 leads. But there did seem to be.
We had Chelsea were a post-goal team.
Yeah, we're post all that scoring stuff. But it was odd to see Liverpool unable to defend in any way or to continue to play the football that they'd played to get there. And this has been sort of the mental weakness of Liverpool. It's just very un-Klopp-like. Watching the way that team started playing football or stopped.
And then Richarlison came on to booze, and I tweeted, odds that Richie has an Everton shirt on underneath his Tottenham one to reveal when he scores, just for the bants. And we found out the answer. 93rd minute, free kick, Sonny killed a Sterling in swing, a far post, Nunez, crouching tiger, tried to clear it, but Richarlison bravely put his head in there and kind of bounce that ball down and up into the net. Scenes, shirt off, no Everton shirt, not even Chang tattooed across his chest for old time's sakes. But man, He may have only scored once this season for Spurs in the Premier League. And indeed, man has more yellow cards for excessive celebration than he does goals. But God, did he make the most of it, David? There was the shirt off, there was the knee slide, there was climbing onto the advertising. Are you not entertained? Showcasing, shushing the fans. I can score. I was like, yeah, you scored once, Richie. You don't really shush the fans after scoring once, do you? And then Sonny and Richie doing their chicken dance together, like the forces of good and craziness melding. It was incredible. Then Lucas Moura ran over, tried to put Richie's shirt back on him. GFOP at D-Lust tweeted, Lucas was shouting, get that shirt back on, because I've got a horrendous back pass to make so we can lose the game. But there is a rule in football, right, Davo? After such an incredible emotional high, just an immense team achievement, the rule is, I think you may have forged this one, Tottenham can't have nice things.
Yeah, the only thing that would have made that goal celebration better, Rog, is that when he pulled off the shirt, if one of the Brazilian legends on his back had been Alisson flailing and failing to stop the header into the ground that Richarlison had just scored.
You think Richie, I can imagine how Richie can get tattoos that quickly. And
or maybe doing the chicken dance with Sonny on his back would have been amazing.
That would be on his lower thigh. I think the Alisson thing, already on my taint, I have already the artwork of Alisson flailing. And probably, I'm imagining Richie probably has on his down belows Lucas Moura doing that back pass to completely, utterly negate all of that, David. Because just 99 seconds later, what happened?
Alisson
How
cleared the
did
ball.
it happen?
Alisson cleared the ball from deep. Lucas Moura had been brought on to play wing back to get them back into the game. They're already back in the game, and Lucas Moura is still there playing wing back.
Could have done so much more. Could have just booted the ball downfield. Could have tried to control it. No, Why would you do either of those options?
He could have tried to put it top bins in his own goal, and he probably wouldn't have made it. He just laid it back. I mean, the weight of that back pass. I mean, right into the
doesn't get enough respect
of Diego Jota. It
Surging
was just
Jota.
beautifully done.
We're contractually obliged to know, when you mention Jota for the first time, a player that arguably could have been sent off for a high boot earlier to Oliver Skipp's face, which Casemiro, if you're listening, we know you would have looked at and thought, my God, I'd get a straight red for that. But we digress. I mean, Spurs fans are already on one with Jota. Charged forward, just rifled it home. Just deliriously, madly, truly angled it, Davo, superbly.
Yeah, it was a great finish. He had a lot to do. Still a very good assist from Moura, but he had a lot to do.
5th goal in 4 games for Jota. Football is amazing. This 99-second spell. Winston Churchill once said that nothing in life is so exhilarating as to be shot at without result. And what we witnessed was Spurs experiencing that exact exhilaration with the Richarlison goal, only for the proverbial bullet to take a U-turn, head right back and slap them right in the arse. It was just an incredible roller coaster of emotion, David.
Yeah, it's like the old ladder sketch from Abbott and Costello, Roger. It really just felt like the personification of that.
What happens in that?
Well, is they constantly turning around with the ladder and they duck to go and miss the ladder and they duck and miss it and then they stand up and they give themselves a little moment and then the ladder comes back around and hits them in the back of the head. That sort of is my best description of it. Could have been the Keystone Cops, think it's Abbott and Costello, could have been every single one of those.
I hate the term, the modern football club, but what you say is, I hate the term Bants Club, I really do, but Bants Club. I mean, Bants Club. And Klopp could not contain himself. He's had a much publicised beef with match official Paul Tierney, Scandoval, I think it's called. Some would call it undermining an official's integrity. I think if it came from a mouth other than Klopp's, it would not be received so respectfully. You might remember December 2021, another clash came during a dramatic 2-2 draw, also against Spurs, in which Klopp marched up to Tierney and said, "I have no problem with any referees, only you." And on this day, post-goal, it's an incredible moment. He charged down the sideline to give the 4th official a mouthful in that moment of victory and appeared to pull his hamstring in the process. Very weird variation on that, call an ambulance, but not for me meme. And this wasn't a good look for Klopp, David. It does fail, I'd say, what if, that we call like the what if Jose Mourinho did it test, right?
Oh, look, for a big man, for a giant of the game, for a man who is rightfully lauded for his qualities as a human and as a manager, he is occasionally capable of pettiness and poor behavior, which is up there with the Mourinho's, should be uttered in the same breath. It wasn't just he got in the face. He charged in the moment of celebrating his team win. He charged up to a fourth official who hasn't made a single decision in this game and gets right in his face and yells at him. He is a man of God. He's an evangelical Christian, Jurgen Klopp, so he does believe in a vengeful God. And so the vengeful God did then strain his hamstring, no doubt, which he referred to after the game. And then he took it a step further, because in the post-match, he says that Paul Tierney, but what the referee said to me in those moments, I can't say what it is, but what the referee said to me was way worse. I was punished for what I did to the assistant, meaning his hamstring, as though the punishment by God was enough because of what happened to him.
A finger coming out of the sky.
It's so crazy. But he... But what the referee said to me, I can't even say in this moment. It is so petty. It is such pathetic behaviour. I'm sorry, Liverpool fans, you're going to loathe me for saying this, but this is this flip side of Klopp that is just, I don't know, it just is so distasteful. After, by the way, I thought Liverpool got the better of the decisions in that game. I think Ryan Mason had more, justifiable wrath at the end of the game.
Yeah, but Ryan Mason didn't want to pull a hammy. He just decided, I'm gonna keep it in. I don't want that big finger to come out the sky above Anfield and strike me down.
I don't want a vengeful God pulling my hamstrings.
The vengeful God of Genesis loves Paul Tierney. That's all I'm gonna do. That's the only logical, theological.
The Book of Tierney.
We can take from this. But PGMOL, the refereeing body, have gone on the record to say there was nothing that came out of Paul Tierney's mouth. And this is going to be one of those
because
awful...
they have recordings, right? Because they have recordings.
It's going to be an awful saga, which will go on unnecessarily for a long, long time. I think ultimately not a good look for anyone who pulled a hamstring involved. Let's leave it there. I'm not going to lie. So much of what elite athletes do, and when I watch football at the weekend, I look at and marvel as if I'm looking at something truly transcendent, just like demigod level, untouchable. But I have never related to a Premier League moment more. Just Klopp straining to do something athletic in the moment and just snapping a muscle. In that moment, Jurgen Klopp was just peak suburban dad. And Liverpool Spurs was everything. I mean, we lived everything. We had the greatest game of the season. We had for 20 minutes in that, the first part of the second half, it was fairly humdrum, just sloppy, a game going to sleep kind of fair. And then that ending, what an ending, one we will not forget for a long time. Basically the script for the next great Pete Berg sports movie. Liverpool end up overtaking Spurs with a game in hand in fifth place. Peter Drury said, it just makes no sense. A mad, mad game. What do you think happened, David?
I mean, it's too easy to revert to all the old tropes about Spursiness and, this the tragic comedy of the comeback and then just getting beaten at the last. And I'd say that a lesser team, a team of lesser emotional strength and fortitude, would never have gone back into that game. Would never have got back from 3-0, would never have come back from 3-1. I really feel for Tottenham fans because this 4-3 loss was worse than a terrible performance that would have, if they'd never got back into the game and lost 3-0 or 4-0. It just does feel worse. It's heartbreaking for them. Liverpool were at home. They're powered by the ref. They're powered by their own, fury at or supposed fury at decisions. And they got back into it. I mean, ultimately, I sort of feel, and believe me, I've been watching a very bad team all season, so I think I know a little bit about this. This was two not very good football teams with still some very good players capable of some great moments. But it led to some great moments, but two not very good football teams at the end of this. And hence, it only takes two donkeys to make a horse race, Rog, as our great friend Barry Hearn always used to tell us. And these were two donkeys, and it was a great horse race.
Our old great GFOP friend, that Josh Cale said, Premier League script writers never miss. And at James Hartdow tweeted, both teams were exactly who we thought they were. And for Liverpool, that means 5 wins on the bounce for the first time in a year. Klopp said, we have no chance to enter into the top 4. Of course not. But the actor Jared Harris, our friend, great GFOP, great Manchester United fan. You may remember him in Mad Men and as Valery Legasov in HBO's Most Excellent Chernobyl, retweeted. We posted, if you have not seen it, it's incredible. We Are Tottenham TV, these 2 live streamers, just an incredible duo, just incredibly, just life-affirming, just in their resilience to the agony that Spurs are putting through. They had an incredible reaction to that 99 seconds from ecstasy to agony. My favourite line, just after Richarlison scores, one of them shouted to another, "Is the time for a winner?" Jared Harris retweeted when we promoted that clip. He just retweeted it and said how incredible the human emotion in this clip is. And We Are Tottenham TV quote tweeted Jared Harris's mention of them with a quite brilliant, Jared Harris witnessed Chernobyl and Spurs are still the biggest disaster he's ever seen.
Yeah. Okay, Roger, in other action, Fulham 1, Manchester City 2. City jumped out in front in just the 3rd minute after Tim Ream brought down Julian Alvarez. He was framed, Roger. Regardless, it allowed Erling Haaland to smash home his 50th goal of the season in all comps. But the cuddly cottagers did not just roll out the red carpet for the Viking invader. They hit back in the 15th minute with a Carlos Vinicius thumper past Ederson to make it 1-1. But in the 36th minute, Alvarez, the Noel to Haaland's Liam, the thunder to his lightning, unleashed an absolute belter for the winner. City go top of the table, 2 points ahead of Arsenal with a game in hand.
Tuned into this one, as I imagine some fairly squeamish Romans used to back in the day when they tuned into broadcast of Christians being fed to the lions. That was my anticipation. I thought we were going to see something grisly, something awful. Treble hunting City, steamrolling, all comers. Didn't matter who they were. Like Bayern Munich, done. Arsenal, done. They're on a 13-game winning streak against Fulham to boot. They had Haaland, 16 goals in his last 9 games, all comps. You can't even compute. You can't even compute what untouchable, superlative hunger, desire, force that is. Facing up to our very own superhero Tim Ream, a man old enough to be Roy Hodgson's contemporary. City knew 6 wins in the last 7 Premier League games, 91 points would hand them the title. They had no KDB, out with a knock, probably saving him for the Real Madrid wars to come. And yes, they needed a 95th minute penalty from Haaland to yank all 3 points in the reverse fixture, a game which had left Pep marvelling about the wonder of Tim Ream's brilliance. And he was fantastic again, Timmy Ream, for the first 89 seconds before he dangled that leg out. Alvarez went over his thigh, block or charge territory, but Timmy had lifted his meaty lower torso. Penalty. Haaland stepped up like a Norwegian Lunderhund spying a Porthouse state, lashed that ball home, David. We say this every week almost, it feels like. Just another record tumbling, tying Alan Shearer and Andrew Cole for the most goals ever in a Premier League season, 34. But he's done it in just 32 games. 50 goals, all comps on the season, most by a top-flight player for 92 years. Yes, I'm sure you're listening, the last person to do it, Tom Pongo Waring did it for Villa in 1931. I miss the days when you had nicknames like Pongo. Davo, can I get a ruling? Do you think Manchester City didn't it ever cross their mind? Or are they just like, we're too good? We're immune to the menace of scoring too early.
Yeah, they're immune. It doesn't apply to Manchester City. It doesn't apply to a team with Erling Haaland. And that they actually needed to score early because this is a team, it does look to be finally catching up with them. Maybe just temporarily, but they have played, because they, I don't know, win every competition they enter or go very far in every competition they enter. They've played quite a lot of games this season. And so scoring early is never 2 for them. It's just as
Scoring
another goal.
Erling. You can never score to Erling. That should be a T-shirt. But, God bless Fulham, because they were dominated in the opening exchanges. They were throttled. But it turns out, Dave, no team, no aspiring champions, no dynasty, no nation state is immune to that immutable life truth. And out of nowhere, pretty well Fulham's first attack, long ball, Wilson nodded it back so smartly to a charging Vinicius, who thighed it down and thrashed it past a stunned, you know who I am, Edison, in the box. 1-1, game on, but there was just an awful moment. For me, one of the lowest points of the season. Tim Ream went down, tangling with Alvarez, fell awkwardly onto his arm. I think he got a cleat in there too. Alvarez blameless in what was just a routine tumble. Had to leave the field with his arm in a shirt like a sling, to a standing ovation at Fulham. A gent who had struggled, remember, in his 2 previous Premier League seasons, but thrived and then some. This year, he'd started every single game, led the team like a rock. That standing ovation, just the joy of appreciation, of wonder for a truly great American who played every Premier League minute, I think with the exception of 2 on that first game in the opening weekend before the injury. To me, this was one of the greatest American Premier League seasons of all time, David.
Yeah, no, it's just amazing watching a play, and even just from a non-American storyline, just like, just respecting just a great athlete to find a way to succeed just so hard late in your career after you have failed at the same club and really win over a fan base. I think they've always liked him, but I don't think they've realized how good he was. And he's just got better and better and better with age, and wonderful to see. Wonderful communion.
Humanly incredible.
Yeah, wonderful
humanly incredible
between him and the fans. Beautiful stuff.
They've always liked him. An incredible club servant. Now they adore him. To watch him walk off, it was later revealed that Tim will miss the rest of the season, fracture in his arm. Godspeed to my friend Tim Ream. Really an agony to miss the rest of this just delightful human journey of a season. He's also going to miss those US matches this summer. Huge loss for the United States too, and a huge loss for the United States fans. Fulham would also later lose playmaker Andreas Pereira. He went off on the stretcher. Some cost this game, but City began to set up siege. Grealish went across goal. Leno, smart save. And the reality with City is they have so many ways to stomp on you. 36th minute, Fulham turned the ball over in midfield. Alvarez on the edge of the box, shuffled, surveyed his options, decided to just smash a total poem of a shot, arcing into the top left with Paul Leno. Just an utter irrelevance in that moment, David. This is what's incredible about Alvarez. 15 goals on the season. And he's just a subplot in Manchester City's season of triumph. No one's talking about him.
Yeah, no one is. And he's been just outstanding. We've spoken about him, but he's just been outstanding constantly. And you're right, so many weapons. We haven't really given Jack Grealish his due of just how superb he's been. He's suddenly become a defensive player. Pep is molding him into the player he wants to be on the team. And, a lot of danger, a lot of also aggro came every single time he got the ball and did anything during this game. But, they needed other players to step up in this game because they were looking a little bit leggy, a little bit tired without KDB, anchoring the midfield. And these were a hard 3 points for them.
You got to credit Fulham. They were so game, so full of don't back down confidence from the manager Marco Silva. It was never truly threatening for Manchester City, just to be clear. It was more uncomfortable, more irritating. You can make the case Fulham should have had a penalty. I think it was a Ruben Dias challenge on Cordova-Reid. Jack Grealish 69. You could make the case should have seen a red for a lot of aggro. Grealish and Tete getting into it. It was really a symbol, that argument of how Fulham wouldn't be cowed, wouldn't back down. Made it really unpleasant for City. They started to hack it clear in the second half. You never see it. Edison was booked for time wasting, but they held on for their 8th straight league win. One of their toughest possibly, but hardly difficult if we're being honest. There was never truly any peril or true threat. And for the first time since February, Manchester City are top of the table with a game in hand. Incredibly, Davo, City have been top for just 14 days this season. Arsenal have led for 247 days. Victory against Chelsea on Tuesday will return them there. But that game in hand that City have, that goal difference, that everything, this is not over. Mikel Arteta insisted over the weekend. Arsenal haven't given up, but it does feel, would you say overish, Davo? City have 13 wins in 14 games, 47 goals blasted along the way. A coronation stomp towards a fifth title in 6 years.
You know, we have to check Richarlison's back tattoo to see how this season is going to end, because clearly everything is written in ink on that back. But it does feel like there could be another twist in the tail. I mean, I'm not feeling overish, actually. I'm feeling like it's still going to be somewhat close-ish. I'm praying for a final day finish, a final day with some stakes to it. I think that would be wonderful.
Arsenal fans, you got the weekend off until a different kind of sad's Chelsea on Tuesday night, after which we'll go live on AMP.
Yeah, Chelsea don't score goals though, so it's
post-goal. We're the world's first post-goal team.
It's going to be hard to lose it. Man United 1, Aston Villa 0. A well-drilled, disciplined United do the business thanks to a 39th minute Bruno Fernandes rebound that looped past Dibu Martinez in the Villa goal. This was Villa's first loss in 11 games, and for United, a low-key big win as they keep 7 points between themselves and fifth place Liverpool.
Yeah, Aston Villa swaggering down to Old Trafford with the confidence of a 10-game unbeaten run, outside dreams of stealing a Champions League place. I mean, it's been an incredible journey from the dark place of 16th to the giddy heights, the bright lights of Unai Emery's promised land of 6. In this one, though, they insisted on playing, I do not understand this, such a self-destructive high line. And the game just seemed to be United with speed, attempting to jailbreak, Rashford running rampant, slapping the ball joyously off Emily Martinez's buttocks just for the lulz. Casemiro back as an imperious footballer once again, shaking off the rust. And now he's had a couple of games back from suspension. He looked like Casemiro again in this one. And Bruno running round like a grenade with its pin out, a danger both to his opponents and at times, as Jadon Sancho told him, stop moaning, to his own teammates. And then Rashford sprang, shot early, Emmy parried away, and it was Bruno finishing with a kind deflection, it should be said, off Moreno that chipped the flailing goalkeeper from an acute angle. But as long as United had chance after chance, which they didn't take, Davo, Villa were always in it.
Yeah, Villa, very, very good outfit, very good team. Lots of players who can hurt you, lots of players who can score goals. I totally agree with you on the high line. It felt a very naive way to go and play at the Theatre of Dreams. But yeah, United certainly had chances that they missed. It was an entertaining game, I think, for everybody who was there. And two teams who are, it feels to me, going into the end of the season, going into next season, that they are on the way up.
There is no doubt. I will say there was an incredible moment towards the end. United needed one of the greatest defensive stands of the season. All praise Lindelof, who's been derided a lot. But check it out. I think it's all over our social, all over everybody's social. One of the single greatest goal line clearances of the season. It's just football's equivalent of facing first and goal from the one and just keeping opponents out the end zone. Lindelof in the JJ Watt role. And so Emery's proud record of having his team scoring every game since he took over in November. That's incredible. Now ends. Big win for United. Not always convincing, but to beat Villa, this Villa, some bloody achievement. God bless. I want to say this, Villa fans though, God, they are loving every moment of this surreal journey from worst to first, or their version of, which is like 6th or 7th or whatever they end up. They spent the game just reveling in it. You know, Harry Maguire came on. They cheered Harry Maguire's entrance and spent forever chanting his name. They sang at the United fans, "You've had your protests, now F off home," I paraphrase, and they ended the game in full voice with a round of "There's only one Joel Glazer." God bless them. They've been on some journey. I respect them highly, Davo. They are evidently taking every moment to make memories.
Yeah, it's tough not to be a fan of Aston Villa. I've never met anybody who's hated Aston Villa. Other than maybe a Wolves fan once, but it's tough it's tough to have any sort of feeling of negativity towards them, and their fans, do light up the Premier League wherever they go.
God bless. We've got to mention quickly incredible days of best of times, worst of times vibe at Manchester United. The club are now firmly in the top four, even as their fans wage war on their owners, the Glazer family. During this slightly chaotic sale, or non-sale as it may turn out, third round of bids received on Friday. The fans before this game had a massive demonstration demanding 100% sale, which is really a euphemism for selling to the Qatari Sheikh Jassim. Because the other lead bidder, local boy industrialist Sir Jim Ratcliffe, is said to have put in a higher bid, but one that would leave room for the Glazers or some of them to retain a 20% minority ownership. Third option, maybe that one or more of the Glazers retain their stake and take investment into the club from American investors Elliott Investment Management, who overhauled AC Milan. The Carlyle Group. God, this is football where you know all the names of every investment bank. Ten Hag was asked after the game if the supporters' protests make it difficult for his team. He said, "We feel they are behind us. We have to focus. That's what fans expect." It's just strange, surreal days of miracle and wonder at Old Trafford right now.
Is this real, or is it just an elaborate promo for season 4 of Succession, Rog? It's like Waystar United. It's it's just changing in every single episode.
Yeah, and United fans, just all they want is that sweet Gojo money. By the way, based on your description of Villa really are the Premier League equivalent of Tom Hanks. That's pretty much how you describe. They're just Hanks incarnate.
I know. And Prince William, of course.
Yeah, Hanks in his greatest role yet as an entire football club. Cuddly Aston Villa.
Newcastle 3, Southampton 1. The Toon win their third on the bounce, but they had to come from behind to do it against the lowly Saints after the man from just north of the border, Stuart Armstrong, made it 1-0 in the 41st minute. But a second half fueled by those Geordie Splash brothers, Alexander Isak and Callum Wilson, who came on for your mate Rog, engineered a decisive comeback with Wilson scoring twice to take his Premier League tally to 15 on the season. Newcastle stay third, 2 points ahead of Man United.
Yeah, it was a weird game. I mean, the first half, winless in their last 8, bottom feeders Southampton, went up to St James's Park, that cauldron. And Newcastle, who had blasted 10 goals in their last 2 games, giddy Newcastle, delirious Newcastle. Southampton, one of arguably the best worst teams in the Premier League when they want to be in transition. Stuart Armstrong finishing from close range, and Eddie Howe reworked things at half-time, flung on Callum Wilson, yanked Anthony Gordon, is crossing, still on the Everton settings, I think. You could see his teammates just seething with him the whole bloody game. Well, within 10 minutes... Wilson was the game changer, created a crevice of space, stabbed home Isak's cross. See, Wilson doesn't just score against Everton. 7 goals in his last 7 apps. St James's Park was roaring. Wilson scored again, which was just finally ruled offside. But he wouldn't be deterred. Kieran Trippier putting a delivery into a dangerous place. Botman angled it onwards. Poor Theo Walcott brought out a horrible side of me as he deflected the ball home. And then Callum Wilson...
Not for the first time. I'm meaning not the horrible side of you. I'm just saying, actually, Theo Walcott, he brings out most of the negativity.
Oh, my God. But he'd only done it while wearing an Everton shirt. It's very rare for him to do it in that way, right? For the other teams. But, my God, Wilson would not be deterred. Most Premier League goals since the start of April. 8 Callum Wilson. Which is more than Erling Haaland 6, Mohamed Salah, Ollie Watkins 5, and the most by a player in a single calendar month for Newcastle in the competition, surpassing Alan Shearer's best of 7. All of Alan Shearer's records threaten to go to dust. Those are some numbers, Dave, especially for a gent who's really second choice to record signing Isak. Newcastle options. Oh, the firepower on that team, so deep.
Yeah, he's the highest scoring Callum ever in the Premier League, Rog.
Is that true?
No Callum has scored more goals than Callum Wilson.
God, get your statue
I haven't checked those
ready.
facts. I'm just imagining that I can't think of another Callum who's scored more goals than Callum Wilson.
Hudson-Odoi?
Yeah,
Definitely not.
Definitely not. Crystal Palace 4, West Ham 3. What a game. The leather-bound Premier League manager derby between Roy Hodgson, bless, and David Moyes proves these two can still party. A 7-goal thriller. They're like those Golden State Warriors senior dance squad, Roger. 7-goal thriller at Selhurst Park. West Ham struck first. via Thomas Souček, but Palace hit back with the old Roy Hodgson triple rabbit punch. 3 goals in a 15-minute span, and West Ham just couldn't claw their way back into it. Palace hit 40 points on the seasons, will all but guarantee another year of top-flight football. My God, if they're not safe, Chelsea aren't. West Ham, meanwhile, are 5 clear of the drop.
God, the two oldest managers in the Premier League, Roy Hodgson and David Moyes, collided in the worst remake of Grumpy Old Men of all time. We tuned in early Saturday morning to see how the mighty Eagles would rebound from the first defeat of their second great Hodgson era. And it was a helter-skelter 7-goal game, as sloppy as the Selhurst Park turnstiles which malfunctioned, leaving thousands in the street outside before kick-off. But this was a game worth waiting for. Eberici Eze later called it an absolute madness. The goals were just fast and furious, Vin Diesel style, Palace dominant, but also hilariously vulnerable from every set piece. Palace bounced back from that early concession with the spirit of Dunkirk, which I believe, Davo, Roy Hodgson remembers living through as a then 40-year-old man, right?
Yeah, so he was too old to serve. Was too old to join the British Expeditionary Force.
Money's were gone. Oh, I would have been there.
Let down horribly by the Belgium left flank.
I want to give a Jerry somewhat. They don't like it up and at him. But Roy Ball then ensued 3 goals in 30 minutes. South London swagger. Really a brilliant, resilient, a beautiful move, including an Ayew brother netting his 4th goal of the season and returning hero Zaha slapping home his first since November. Joy in the sun. Unless West Ham had a set piece in which they seemed to be able to bundle the ball across the line with concerning ease. Eze, with a penalty, put the game away, meaning 15 goals and counting in the 6 games since Roy took over. More than a third of Palace's output in that entire season. Uncle Roy, Premier League probiotic. Davo, Palace, your Palace, once cratering, now above Chelsea, in 11th place, hitting the magical 40-point mark. They're safe, up the Palace and mean it. West Ham still on the fringe of the drop zone. AZ Alkmaar in the Europa Conference League semi-final coming up, but they have Manchester City and Manchester United to come.
Yeah, so happy for my old mate Steve Parish. That was a bold decision, getting rid of Patrick Vieira, bringing back Roy. You know, to many, this seemed like a disaster in waiting. It has been just the elixir that this team needed. They are playing beautiful football, scoring at will, and South London is proud again. Rog, wonderful stuff. Brighton 6, Wolves 0. The Premier League beaten of the week as the Seagulls hang 6 on the visitors from the Midlands. A troika of braces from Germans Dennis Undav, Pascal Gross, and England's Danny Welbs. See Brighton cruise. Brighton are in 8th place. They're just 4 points off 5th and still very much in the mix for European football next season, Rog.
How do you respond to the letdown about playing Manchester United in the FA Cup semi-final and then crashing out on penalties, then slumbering through a midweek loss against bottom-feeding Nottingham Forest? By resting McAllister, Caicedo and Mitoma, leaving them on the bench and furling their biggest ever top-flight victory at the expense of a truly woeful Wolves. 6 goals, 4 by half-time, the most the Seagulls have ever scored inside the first 45, and the scoreline barely reflected Brighton's domination. They could have won by 10 or more. Hat-trick of doubles from Undav, Pascal Gross and Danny Welbeck, tying a club record 52 Premier League points. The Seagulls remain 8th in the Premier League, but they got games in hand all over the place, and De Zerbi called it the best performance he's ever had as a coach. I hope from the bottom of my heart Brighton and Hove Albion go on a European journey that next season. That club, that ownership, that delirious fan base deserve it. They're just magnificent in every facet.
Yeah, depending on how West Ham do in the rest of their season, Rog, in Europe, I think 7 or 8 teams are going to make it out of the Premier League into some form of European competition. So certainly have my fingers crossed for Brighton. Bournemouth 4, Leeds 1. The Cherries absolutely bludgeon a Leeds team that is taking on water to your delight, I would say, Rog. Gary O'Neill's mob shot out to a 2-0 lead thanks to a pair of really nice finishes from Colombia's Jefferson Lerma in the 20th and 24th minute. Leeds did get one back in the 32nd minute from Ivy League. Could have been Paddy Bamford, but second half goals from Dom Solanke. It's all former Chelsea strikers scoring goals. Always continue your runs, young footballers out there. And a first Premier League goal from England-born Ghanaian international Antoine Semenyo complete the victory. A second straight win for Bournemouth has them on 39 points. Leeds, meanwhile, just 1 point from the bad place.
Oh my God, Leeds in this game. They opened with vigour and energy, also well-intentioned, Somerville buzzing around. If you watch a lot of Leeds, you're rarely more afraid than when your Leeds are on the front foot early, because it's been an all too familiar story this season. They're almost like that Indiana Jones sword-spinning opponent in the Cairo marketplace, in which Indy just pulls out a gun and shoots his whirling nemesis. And so it came to pass. Bournemouth just went full Harrison Ford, Lerma, just in two incredible finishes. Yes, it was a Bamford header, which was hope, false hope. And then the second half, Leeds were feeble. It was just every single player, every single trope of their season. Meslier floundering, the back line crumbling. It was really dark. And that Leeds fan base, who are so passionate, so committed, spent the second half demanding the board resign. It's been an agony for them to witness. What the effing hell was that? They chanted to the players at the end, not fit to wear the shirt. Their team have taken 1 point from the last 15 available down the stretch. Goal difference has cratered. They've let in, I think, 20 Premier League goals in April, which is a record, or equaling a record, and the record that previous holder was them. February of last year. English media, Davo, are reporting panic stations at Leeds that the owner, Andrea Raggiani, mulling firing Javi Gracia, who's taken just 1 point from the last 5 games. The stakes at Everton are existential for their future. But God, the San Francisco 49ers, if they go down, whether they actually execute their takeover, those are really the stakes for that club.
Heavy stuff. But another American-owned team, Bournemouth, Rog, they deserve a lot of credit.
God bless Vegas Golden Knights, Bill Foley, who I believe plays like Viva Las Vegas and stuff like that before the game, which I just love. He bravely announced that his side would not be relegated when he took over, and they will not. 10 points clear of the drop now, equal on points with Chelsea. Their manager, Gary O'Neill, quietly revolutionised this season. 6 wins in their last 9 games. Season transformed really by Salah's ballooning penalty, which handed the Cherries victory against Liverpool. And I love that in this moment of great victory, Gary O'Neill acknowledged that on small moments like that, seasons, futures are defined. He said, if Mo Salah would have scored that penalty, people would have been calling me the worst manager in the league, nowhere near ready for what was such a big job. But his Cherries will live for another season, and it's beautiful. He said we've seen some dark evenings in the O'Neill house. We will enjoy this one. Not many people outside of Bournemouth would have given us a prayer. But not Vegas Golden Knights owner Bill Foley. He predicted like Babe Ruth and then hit a home run. It's magnificent to see.
Brentford 2, Nottingham Forest 1. Rog, bees versus trees, and the bees edge it. But they left it late. It was yellow and blue clad Forest who took the lead via a Judge Ivor Bennett time Danilo goal, but a pair of second half anti-Pura Vida strikes past Kayla Navas from Ivan Toney and Josh Da Silva leave Forest just 1 point clear of the drop. Agony for them. Bums are growing ever tighter along the River Trent and elsewhere. Rod.
God, just an agony of a late sucker punch for poor Nottingham Forest. God, I imagine one that hurt far more than the 3 points drop. Just that they had it. An away win, something that they've rarely been able to achieve. They had it. They did everything. They'd scored against a run of play with organisation, with fight, with tenacity, with just the quite excellent Morgan Gibbs-White shooting, and it deflected to Danilo, who followed up the goal he scored against Brighton midweek with a sharp finish. On the first shot Forest had on goal, all game. And Brentford, God bless, huffed and puffed in the sunshine in the second half. They'd had a 6-game winless streak. It all felt a bit like the beige taste of a season, slipping away into mid-table. But then Ivan Toney blasted his 20th goal of the seasonal comps, became the first Brentford player to do that since the 1930s, arcing home a free kick. Oh, that gent can score in every which way. Incidentally, the Bees, 14 set-piece goals in the league this season. It's those differences. And then at the death, after Forest had been reduced to 10 men, self-inflicted this, Danilo injured after all Forest substitutions had been made. They sat deep, dug in, held on, dogs of war, until Josh Da Silva cut inside, slapped home, through a screen of players. Davo, the latest gent to score Everton's most important goal of the season, not to play for Everton. Godspeed. It was first, as Kyle Lockhart tweeted us, first Reece Nelson, then Bukayo Saka, now Josh Da Silva. Arsenal past and present are keeping Everton afloat.
Yeah, I think Steve Cooper would want the last 20 minutes of that game back. Terrible substitution before the set piece results in that Ivan Toney goal. And then getting all of his substitutions in, unable to replace the injured Danilo because he's used all of his substitution windows, Rog.
Yeah.
It just was a very bad game management at the end of the game.
Yeah, clumsy substitutions for Steve Cooper, who tried to pass it off as things just didn't go our way. 10 men agony.
In a game, take deep breaths, Rog, that will be going on right around the time this podcast is released. Leicester versus Everton in the 6-pointer to end all 6-pointers. I mean, this really feels like a vital game for both teams, a Sadnap derby for the ages. Both teams in the relegation zone with a chance to move out of it if they win. Rog, you said earlier you'd bite my arm off for a draw. You'd bite your own arm off. You'd bite all the arms for a draw. But how are we feeling ahead of this one?
This is our Super Bowl. It's our game.
It's 7. Super Bowl Sunday.
It is on Monday. It is. It's our everything. This is. Make no mistake. We are in serious danger. Serious danger of being relegated for the first time since 1951. I honestly feel like we got one leg, maybe 1.5 legs in the Championship already. This is the biggest game for Everton Football Club. Since our last desperate fight against relegation led to massive games against Crystal Palace last season. As I said earlier, for Everton, this is not just relegation. All of you sending lovely messages saying, don't worry, they can reorganise and just come right back up. This is probably, relegation will lead to giant financial meltdown because the club is right now so jerry-rigged together financially. The stadium is like an albatross around our neck right now, the new stadium. But also footballingly, I've rarely, Davo, gone into a game so bereft of hope. The good news is we only have 2 problems, this team. Number 1 is we can't score for our lives. And number 2, we can't defend, which when you think about it, it's a pretty terrible combo tactically. And last year, Davo, we had Richie. We had Richarlison. We had that was hope. That was hope. What hope, seriously, objectively, with your eye? Honestly, this is how I feel about it. What hope do we have this afternoon? Can you even begin to make the case? Because I'm flailing.
Defenders score goals. That's one thing. So I think it's going to take a Strafender this afternoon. I think that's one thing. I think maybe Dominic Calvert-Lewin is feeling like this is the time to start behaving like a striker again. Big game for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Could become an Everton legend today. And Leicester, let's face it, have not been very good. All of those good players, all of those stars, but they have failed to put it together. Leicester have a very tough. I was looking at their running. Their running is insane. Leicester have to win this game. They've got to push forward. They've got to push forward. A draw is better for Everton than it is for Leicester. That's
Bite your arm off. Guys, if you want to draw, just text me. I'll sort it out for everyone. If everyone feel good. I got to say, I am dreading this game. I do want to be clear. I love my team. I love Everton Football Club. Watching Everton Football Club has given me such joy in my lifetime. Joy as an individual, joy with my family, joy with my dad, joy as a father with my kids, these poor sods who are now on this boat of doom alongside of me. I want to be clear. The prospect of watching Everton this afternoon is like, it is a trauma. I woke up I woke up in the middle of the night and was like, oh my God, we are playing Leicester at 3 p.m. this afternoon. And I just felt sick, like dry heaved, as if I was being forced this afternoon at 3 p.m. to watch a marathon of Eli Roth snuff movies. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't get back to sleep. So I texted with my mate. I've talked about him before, an Everton supporting mate, Scott. He lives in California, so he's still up. One of the biggest blues I know, when he lived in England, he used to travel home and away with Everton Football Club. And he texted me late night. He texted me this, Davo. He texted, I'm deep into blind hope for one more miracle. No way I can watch this game. So I booked a dentist appointment for 3 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow.
You'd rather be at the dentist than watching Everton. Wow.
Yes, this is where we are. This is what we've been reduced to. Give me that sweet, sweet, painful root canal. Don't make me watch Everton Football Club, the club I love. I just texted back a line from Cormac McCarthy. Suffering is part of the human condition and must be borne, but misery is a choice. That's what it feels like to be an Everton fan right now. Brighton and Manchester City next. I want to end by rereading Yanis's brilliant line when the Bucks got eliminated from the playoff. Words of poetic beauty.
I see.
There's no failure in sports.
Oh.
There's good days, bad days. Some days you're able to be successful. Some days you are not. Incredibly human moment from Yanis. But Yanis, call me. Maybe Everton are the exception because they feel like failure. Only failure.
Rog, whatever happens today, you're not a better person if they win. You're not a worse person if they lose. You're not an okay person if they draw.
Oh, I'm an awful person.
It is just sports. It's just sports.
America, I promise you, I won't change. I'll still be same old awful Rog, no matter the outcome.
Okay, well, that's how you're feeling ahead of this one. Okay, before we go, a quick reminder about everything we've got happening at Men in Blazers this week, powered by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. I was just thinking, Rog, that it's not really, for me, Chelsea versus Arsenal isn't really a Super Bowl. It doesn't even have the weight of preseason for me. Tomorrow, it's a special Do It Live after that Arsenal versus Chelsea game at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Do not miss that. Wednesday morning, it's the Ted Lasso pod special. Thursday, we Vamos, presented by Bud Light. I'm loving that pod, Rog. Superb stuff. And Friday, it's WGFOP, what our friend John Oliver would call a fire hose of content, Rog. Can we get a toast to close us all out?
Oh, yes, I raise this shot of Jägermeister, this bolt of human emotion in a shot glass to Plymouth Argyle in general and their chairman in particular. On a weekend in which they gained promotion to the Championship. The story's remarkable. It begins thusly. In 2016, we received a magical email from GFOP Simon Hallett, a Bucks County PA-based corporate investment officer, telling us he'd been so moved by our podcast in which we'd had Steve Parish of Crystal Palace, Barry Hearn of Leyton Orient talk about ownership on our podcast. He said, I've been so inspired, I've decided to invest in my local childhood team, Plymouth Argyle. And Plymouth Argyle were then languishing in League Two, England's fourth tier, really languishing. 10 years ago, Plymouth Argyle had just avoided dropping into the non-league after bankrupting debts of 23 million. And when he came on our show, Simon talked about how the investment, he said, it's purely emotional. He admitted it had no rationale to it at all, but he got stuck in, dreamed of restoring the club to the big time. And like lower league Jerry Jones, Simon Hallett has done so because for the first time since 2010, yesterday, they were promoted to the Championship, one step away from the Premier League promised land, to which Plymouth, it should be said, remains the biggest city in England never to have reached the top flight. Simon wrote to me in the wake of this weekend's achievement. He said, don't tell the mother of my children or the mothers of my grandchildren, but this has been, without doubt, the happiest day of my life. I won't tell anyone, Simon. No. By the way, he also signed off by saying, it's not all about the Premier League. And I got to say, Simon Hallett is an Everton fan, but also as a human being. I say, Lord, I hope you're right. Godspeed, Plymouth. Oh, and you mighty Green Army.
Where are the Argyles in American soccer, Rog? We need somebody, surely like some town beginning with a P or sounding a bit like Plymouth could call themselves Argyle.
Are you talking about in MLS when they have a new franchise instead of an SC, or a United? You want more Argyles?
An Argyle would be excellent.
Maybe Phoenix, if you're listening. When you make MLS, become Phoenix Argyle.
Phoenix Argyle is excellent. Okay, you can follow us on Twitter at Men in Blazers, at Embassy Davies, at Rog Bennett on Instagram, at Men in Blazers, at Embassy Davies on Facebook. We're Men in Blazers on Twitch, twitch.tv/Men in Blazers. We're on YouTube. You can see a video version of our podcast, including this podcast, which we'll release in full. Go and watch that right now. Also, our TikTok, look for it at Men in Blazers. You can always email us at meninblazers@gmail.com. Venderpunk Rog.
War Pig!
Was that a Rabona?
I like snacks.
Bulls win, Bulls win.
Take that, Gloria.
Bulls lose.
To Tweed.
Abrigado, rock on, mate.
Kung Fu Fight America. Love you, Davo.
Love you, Rog.
Oh, bite your arm off for a point. Listen to the full version of this podcast and all our podcasts wherever you get your pods. But first, subscribe here for more Men in Blazers videos and courage.